Hey YouTube, it's Tony with Sawdust Brothers. Today we're going to be working on, I'm kind of bringing you in after we already started. I have to apologize about that. But we're working on a 2006 Ranger XP 700. We're going to be doing power steering on it. It's a kit from Super ATV. We've got some bushings for the A-frames, suspension stuff. We're going to redo the brakes. We just redid the parking brake caliper. So there's quite a few things that we're working on, and we'll bring you along for the ride. So I will get you a closer look. So I'll get you a closer look at what we've already started. Sorry again for bringing you in, but you didn't really miss much. All right, so we have the dash apart and the hood off of it, and we've actually taken the steering linkage off of it. So to get the hood off is really easy. There's one single plug for the headlights. It's right here, and you can take two screws off of each side here, and then the whole hood will just come off and be in one piece. I know it's not the greatest lighting when you turn the light on. So, yep, one plug right there, two screws for the hinges, and it comes right off. Now, to take the dash off is a little more difficult. You've got, on this particular model, there was two screws in the center. There was a screw down here. I don't know if you can see that real well. There was a screw on either side. You had to take the gear shifter off, and then there was two screws in this little cubby hole. There was a little cubby at the bottom. There's two screws in there that you had to take off. Once you do that and you disconnect in the back side, you can reach in here, and that's where the switches and stuff and the ignition, the hour meter, you can take those off. And then you had the fun time of getting the steering wheel off, which it shouldn't be hard. It's a single nut. It's on just a spline. I don't know how well this will show the spline in there. A spline is just a bunch of grooves. You can see it if I pull this up. All those grooves right there, those are the splines. And that's how it holds the steering wheel. So you take this nut off, leave the nut partially on. You can take a little hammer and hit on the nut itself while you pull up on the steering wheel, and it'll pop off normally. So the Super ATV kit that we bought that back in December of 2021. Never opened the box. We were collecting parts to do a full teardown on this machine and revamp everything. So my suggestion to anybody who's going to do something like that is you should open the box. I'm speaking from experience. Open the box, inventory everything that's in there so you know for sure that all the parts are in there. So I opened my box up to install this, and I found that they had packaged one of the brackets wrong, and it's the main bracket that we need. So I contacted Super ATV. That's a whole nother story. But in the end, I was able to get another bracket for my kit that I did have to pay part of. But again, that's a whole nother story. So the bracket came in. Now we can move forward with it. The parts look good. I have not actually used the kit, but I've noticed that nobody on YouTube has done a 2006 Ranger XP 700 EFI. So we are going to do it, and we'll put it out there for anybody else who decides to do this or may need help with something. And if we come up with a problem, we'll show you what we did to resolve it. So now I'll tell you about the steering linkage, how we got that disconnected. It's really simple. There's two bolts. There's one on the top and one on the bottom. So I know there's not a very good way to show you this, but there's a spline shaft right at the end of my finger, right there. That's where the steering shaft connects onto the steering gearbox. So to take that off, there's a bolt and a nut. You take that off, and you do have to pull the bolts all the way out, because the bolt sticks into the splines, and this has got it also. So this is the easiest way to explain. Let me pull this up. So see that relief around the splines? The bolt actually slides into that and helps hold the steering shaft in place. So you do have to remove the bolt. Same thing on the top. If you can see down in there, the bolt sticks out into the bore. So you have to take those two bolts out, and sometimes you'll have to take like a flat screwdriver or a chisel, and what you have to do is spread this open a hair just to get it out, and then it'll slide right off those splines. So once that comes out, then you can start the process of putting in the new equipment. You got to drill some holes. It's almost bolt on. So I tried to get you the best camera angle I could here to get this new steering linkage installed. So there is an alignment on it. There's a notch in the steering. Sorry for the extra noise here, but there is in the splines on that steering shaft, there is a break in the splines, and you got to line up the non-splined part, I guess, with that according to the instructions. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to reach my hand in there. None of it looks fun. So I'm going to attempt to reach in here and see what happens. I cannot see what I'm doing. I'm only feeling right now. I always call it working blind. It seems awfully loose. Why does that seem so loose? Is that right? That can't be right. There's no way that'll tighten up to get on there. From what I'm feeling. Okay, I wanted to show you why these instructions aren't very good. So in the pictures here, let's see if I can get this to focus correctly. So in the pictures here, the item is sitting like this. So you have the splines on the top, and it slides in and out of that slip yoke. Okay? And then show that going down to the steering gearbox. But that is bigger than that end. So the larger end goes on the electric motor for the power steering, but not the other end. It's definitely too small. So when I tried to put that on and I said it doesn't feel right, that's because it's this. So it's actually going to get installed upside down compared to the picture. So again, their instructions and pictures are not exactly the greatest. Now, back to our regularly scheduled program of getting this installed. Okay, let's try this again. I'm going to stick this down in from the top, hopefully. I can get this lined up on here and it'll slide on. Oh, look at that. Like butter. So now we should be able to put the screw in there. This is so difficult to get my hands in here. I can't see anything. Okay. Bolt is in there. I don't know if it'll lift off of there still. Yeah. So that needs to be tightened up on there. And I probably need to just shift the wheels a little bit, make it a little bit easier to get to. Alright, we'll be back in a second. Action. So, hopefully, you're still able to see this. Got a really long extension and a 13mm socket and a swivel. That should be tight. Okay, it does not come off of there. Oh my God. Alright, so the instructions say we gotta identify the holes in the frame up here where the main bracket's gonna go. And that's actually these two holes right here. So got two holes in the bracket. I don't know if we can see those. And then that'll bolt up right there. And then the controller mounts right here. So it says to drill those out to 3/8. So I'm going to follow the instructions and hopefully they're correct. And I do want to say, these Milwaukee tools are amazing. We ran this one over with a skid steer, and the only thing that happened to it is that the chuck's got a dent in it, and it's a little bit harder to turn than it once was, but let's get this drilled out. Love good drill bits. Okay, now it tells us to install motor K to motor bracket B with M8 by 125 by 1.25 by 20 millimeters long. So we're supposed to mount the motor to the bracket. So we're supposed to mount the motor to the bracket. What I don't like is they don't really show you the angle, or the rotation I should state, that it should be mounted. So I'm flipping through the pictures here to see if they show it anywhere else. It's such an interesting... So that's supposed to swing under. How can it swing under if that bracket is in the way? Okay, they told us to mount the motor bracket to the motor. And from what I can see, looking at the pictures and vehicle, that this right here will be facing the front of the vehicle. And this bracket, this edge, will be mounted across, basically across the vehicle. So we'll take and do that and see how it works with the whole kit. Just hand snugging these down. Now we're supposed to install the 2 new shafts on to this and the upper shaft. See if we can get this motor down in here, and the instructions tell you that we're supposed to connect the upper and lower shaft that they supply before we put any other brackets in there. So we'll try to just get this set down in there, and I'll see if I can figure out how to reach in there, which I know you guys can't see, and I'm sorry for that. Let's see if I can get this lined up and go on. Oh, come on. This is definitely not fun. Please just go on there. Oh. I think I see why I've not seen any of these done on YouTube. Is probably because there's too much cussing involved trying to get this all taken care of. Man. Okay, I've got the bottom one slid on. I'm gonna get the bolt in there. I don't know if anybody can even see anything that I've done. Oh, that's going to be super fun to do. Yep. Alright, love it when you can see something, but you can't get to it. It's hard to tell, but all the way up underneath the motor, right in that area there, is where I gotta get that bolt. So, fun continues. Again, I think I know why people don't have this posted. It's really hard to film this and get the work done and not just be in the way of the camera, and also try to get your hands where they need to go. I'm going to try feeding it in with the long extension. Nope, I gotta keep that bolt in there. I'm try reaching around from under the dash. At least get it started in the hole. Oh, 2 fingers stretching. Okay. It's in the hole. Oh. I wish you guys could see what I was getting at. Okay, I got the bolt threaded in. I don't know if anybody can see that bolt down in there. So that bolt right there. Finally got that threaded. Now we got to tighten it up. So I'll get out my handy dandy long extension with a swivel again. It's time to get out the handy dandy swivel and long extension again. Let's reach down in here and tighten that bolt up. They don't give you any torque specs for any of these bolts in the instructions either. Now we have an upper shaft to install. Trying to figure out how to get some lighting for you guys so you can see better. This is going to feed through here again, and this is going to feed up into here. So take that shaft out of the steering column. We're going to feed this shaft up into the steering column area. Bolt is going. There we go. So the yoke is on there. Okay. And then the steering column. This is going to suck. No doubt about it. I can't believe there's not a grease fitting on this. That blows my mind. So I'll be back in a moment. I'm going to wire brush this a little bit, and we're going to grease it up before I put it back together. I'm not sure if you guys can see the ding marks in this. I can't get it to focus. There's ding marks in the threads. I'm not sure when that happened, but with that being like that, the nut stops because it's hitting the ding part of the threads. If you guys don't have these or don't know what these are, this is called a thread file. So it's got all the different pitches on it, and they make different ones, but this thing is amazing. So once you figure out what, if we can get a good sight there, but that's the wrong thread. When you get the right one, it sits right in there and it'll actually cover all the threads. Then you just take it around to where the ding spot is, and you can just run it across there and around it. It's hard to do and keep it in camera. But once you get it cleaned up with this, let's check it real quick. I might have gotten that already taken care of. Almost. There's a little burr still there. So I'm going to do a little off camera here, just so I can get it done. Just filing across it like I showed in the video prior to. Now that I've filed across it, I think we'll be in good shape. Oh, on the next one, I see. Look at that. Need a little more cleanup, but it's pretty good. I will accept that. So now that we're done fixing that, we can go back to putting it together. So now we got to get this onto the steering shaft for the steering wheel. So that's always interesting here. Oh, and come on. Why are you fighting me? Okay, first part of the spline goes right in. The second part feels like it doesn't. Let me see if there's any dings on that. I don't think there is. Okay, so I had help taking this apart before, and the splines on the steering shaft got dinged up a little bit, and that's why I couldn't get it to go together. But now I got to get this bolt in, so I know that this shaft's got to come up some. Probably too much. There we go. Okay, other than tightening those up, that's in place. Okay. So now we're going to try mounting this, as they say, or at least get it bolted up. I've learned in the past, leave everything loose until you get everything mostly assembled so that you can slide things around. So get these all set in place. Then we get to try to move this around some. I still don't understand how that's all going to work out together. Get these snugged up, not tight, just loosen that back up just a hair. All right. So we're supposed to be able to stick 2 bolts in. I still think this is a little ridiculous. Working on bigger equipment is always easier, I swear. Maybe heavier, but you at least get to everything. One of these days I'll start using power tools. got those all in, I'm gonna now that those are all in, I'm gonna get the steering wheel kind of set on here. Just gonna kind of set it on here. I'm not gonna tighten all the way up onto the splines and taper. I'm just looking to see what all I'm rubbing against and hitting here. Find that. All right. Well, some of this may have kind of skipped ahead a little bit on you. Had batteries go dead, etc. So what I've done is I did get this attached to the steering shaft that's in the column here. Set the wheel on. I don't have the wheel fully tightened because you have to take the wheel off to put the dash on. This is just, you know, loosely on there by hand, just trying to see the wire routing and how we got to do things. I've been, since all the bolts are loose, I've been kind of adjusting the steering motor itself, seeing how things are going to align, because there could be clearance issues. Everything is a really tight fit. The steering shaft just barely makes it through the column. I don't know how much of it, you can kind of see my finger through there, I hope. So it's pretty tight. Let's see if I can get you a shot down here. Steering has a ability to, let's see if I can get you a shot here. You know, if you don't get everything sitting right, a lot of people showed on other models that you have to trim things. I'm trying to see if I can get it adjusted so we don't have to trim anything. But so far so good. Again, the instructions are not the greatest, and I just, to me, they're not. So what I'll do is, once I'm done and I get everything figured out that needed to be done, I will do a recap of what has gone on, so that hopefully it'll be a easy install for anybody else that wants to do this. It's not been that hard. It's been harder to figure out how things actually go. So onward we go. Just trying to double check all the fits. I'm starting to snug bolts up. Even that's got a little slippy slip to it. It's hard to tell, but all I'm trying to do is move things around, look at where the yokes are at, try to make sure that there's clearance on wires and we're not smashing stuff. I know it's hard for anybody to see what I'm looking at because I'm looking down in little tight spaces, just trying to explain what I'm looking at. And I gotta tell you, I think we are pretty good where we're at. So I'm gonna kind of snug everything up. Slide that over any. So hard to tell. I'm going to snug it up. Test it, see how it looks. Those are pretty snug. Again, I'm just trying to make things semi-tight here. We'll go back and make sure everything's nice and tight when we're done. Probably put some blue Loctite on some of the bolts. That's much better already. Kind of like what I see. Got good clearance up here. I think I'm clearing everything down in the bottom. And it looks like I'm clearing the throttle linkage that's down there. It's so hard to see. It's just buried all up underneath all this. All the pictures, they show this motor being out here. And looking at this, I don't think that that's a good position where you could even get it here on this particular machine. With this moved over, I do have clearance for the pipe that goes in here for the breather, which may have to sit this way, and I don't know if it'll fit under the hood. We'll test that later. This one can go back in its stock location. So I'll figure that out, but I kind of like where that's sitting now. None of the wires are pinched. Everything looks pretty good. I'm going to tighten up the bolts for the motor itself a little more. These will have to be removed and put back in with some Loctite or lock washers, because they did not send any lock washers with the kit. Those are a 10 millimeter head size. Of course, it's metric. Okay, those two slugged up. Okay, those aren't crazy tight, but they're tightened up. So with the motor installed and the engine, or with it not running, what is that? What is that noise? It's hard to do this by yourself. Tie rod end. I can't see it. I guess that sound will have to wait a moment here. That's god awful though. The boot on this is totally ripped. On the steering, that's nice. Yep, that boot's totally trashed on the rack. That might be the rack being that wore out. This machine has, I don't know, could have 1,200 hours on it. I'm not sure, but I know it's had a rough life prior to us getting it. Even the guy I bought it from said that he used to take it down to Texas and mud and all kinds of crazy stuff with it. We're not doing that here. We're literally trying to use it on the farm as a utility vehicle. So I just need it to work. I need it to work well. I don't need any trouble with it. I just want it to work well. So that just about covers most of the installation other than the electrical part of it. And I will show that here shortly. I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so I did a quick test. I just hooked up little alligator jumpers like these. And it works flawlessly. Obviously this is not heavy enough gauge wire to leave that hooked up and use, but I just wanted to test to make sure it works. And it did. The vehicle's sitting on the ground, and I just took and hooked that up and then tested the steering, and what a difference. This thing's gonna be amazing. But when I was doing that, I noticed that this bracket, it flexes. So this is just a piece of thin channel, and they've only got this main bracket mounted on one side of it. And since it's channel, if you put a bolt all the way through, it's going to want to squash that. So you'd have to put a spacer in or something. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to put a bracket. I know, let me see if I can get better lighting. GoPros. So, alright, so now we got a little bit better lighting on here. I'm going to run a bracket. Try not to put too much shadow on here. I'm going to run a bracket from this corner down to this tube. And that'll actually stiffen that pretty heavily. So I've got a piece of 3/4 inch by 3/16 thick flat stock that we're going to cut, and we're going to get that put in place. So it's a little over 3 inches long. I just did a quick measurement to see what I might need. So now, yep, that'll work fine, especially once I put the twist and bend in it so that it'll actually go across there. So we'll get this laid out, get a couple holes drilled, and we'll get back at it. We're going to drill a 5/6, well, it's actually a step bigger than 5/16, so there's clearance for the bolt. But we're going to use 5/16 bolts because that's what I have laying around. So I'm just going to drill one close to the end of this, eyeballed center, because it's not that critical. Give it just a little tiny bit of lube here. Alright, there's one hole. I got to deburr that. I also got to go put a hole in the bracket. So let's do that. And under that bracket there's no motor or nothing. So I just got to pick a spot that I can get the drill to and drill a hole. Alright, I found a really long drill bit that I've had sitting around, which will work. I'm reaching all the way down from the top of the steering column. Finally. I gotta grind the edges round on that, but we'll get it mounted right there. Oh yeah, I bent real easy. But let's see what it looks like. See if that's anywhere close to what we need. See, I put, like I said, a little twist in it. Use a little bit more. And a bend up. A little trial and error. A little more twist. Bring this down to here. Okay, that's probably plenty. And it needs little bend. Let's go see what that looks like. Alright, we're back here. I like that pretty good, really. A little more bend on the upside there. See if that's enough. That sits really good. That sits really good. Yeah, heck yeah. Okay, now I gotta drill a hole in this bracket, and then I can drill a hole in that. Got the hole marked where I want it. Get it drilled in. Okay. Yep, I like it. So we will put a bolt in the steering bracket, and then I will take and drill or mark that hole there so we can get it all set up. So now that I got a bolt in the other part of the bracket, I should be able to at least mark this. We are through both sides. Need to trim this bracket off a little bit. But I think that we've got bolts over here. Sorry, I gotta go dig stuff out. See if this one's long enough or too long. Okay. Huh. See if the lock nut will get onto the nylon. Don't think it will. I think we're just a hair shy. Only one way to find out. And I don't want the nut or the bolt facing down. I know the dash should be there, but I don't want. There we go. I don't want your feet to have a chance. No, it does not get up to the lock nut. Okay, I need to dig around, see if I can find a bolt. Okay, I got the brackets all tightened up. I put lock washers and stainless steel flat washers under that. There's the bracket that I made right here. You could have made the bracket go to one of these bolts, but I wanted to be able to take these bolts loose and still spin the motor and stuff once I had this bracket in place. So cut it off, painted it, put everything together, and now it doesn't flex at all when you move the, nothing flexes. So feel really confident about that. Makes me feel better about it. So now we will continue on. This is going to be a multi-part series. I have so many parts to go on this thing, and still have more parts on order. I have a new rack and pinion for the front end, which comes with tie rods and everything. At least the kit that I ordered. It's definitely got So I'm going to wiggle the wheel. If you look, that wheel over there really doesn't move. I'm moving the wheel up here. This wheel's moving fine, so I definitely got a bad tie rod on one spot or another. Got to change the parking brake caliper out. We got new brake pads. I bought EBC brake pads for it. I have new bearings if needed. I got all the bushings for the A-frame. So again, this will be multi-part, so you'll see more and more happening. But we are definitely moving forward. I'm going to neaten up all the wiring here, get it all zip tied, make sure it's not going to be in the way or get caught on anything. And then we will move on to the next item. This is a brief overview of the instructions that are needed to install this Easy Steer from Super ATV on a 2006 700 XP EFI 4x4. So the first thing you need to do is remove the hood, remove the dash. Once you do that, then you got to remove the old steering linkage. So there's a bolt up here at the top that you have to remove. There's a bolt down on the steering rack and pinion you need to remove, and then you can remove that out. Then once that's done, you also need to remove this particular pre-filter that gives you room to get in here. So once the dash and everything's removed, you need to install this bracket. To install this bracket, you have to drill 2 holes. You actually have to make 2 holes larger, I should say. There's 2 holes right here in front of where my gear shifter mounts. Now mine, there's 2 different styles of parking brakes. They call it a dash mount. The other one, I'm not exactly sure what they call it, but I'm going to tell you that it's hand operated or it's foot operated. The instructions call it dash mount or non-dash mount, but foot operated or hand operated. If it's hand operated, there's a bracket here that you have to cut and trim, and that's all in the instructions that come with Super ATV. But I don't find the instructions very good. They have pictures, but the pictures aren't the greatest. The pictures are separate from the instructions. I don't find it personally that good. So I'm trying to give you an overview. So if you have one just like mine that has the foot parking brake, remove the gear shifter, which you had to do anyways to get the dash out. You got to remove the steering wheel to get the dash out. Once that's done, you drill 2 3/8 holes up here. They're right behind the shifter bracket. Once you have that done, then you put in the lower shaft, put in the motor with the bracket on it, and if you're going to do what I did, I would suggest that you drill this corner out right here. I used a 5/16 bolt. I made this bracket, and it's a 5/16 bolt that goes through the lower. When you don't do that, you'll watch this thing flex because this top is a channel. They only have that upper bracket mounted on this back side of the flange, which is flexible. And by the time you get the leverage of this bracket, the motor bracket, you can actually flex this. It's not these brackets. These are nice and heavy duty. It's the fact that it's hanging on this little thin channel and all the leverage that's here. So I chose to make another bracket. I would do that, drill the hole prior to putting it together. If you're going to use a motor hole, a motor mount screw, then you don't have to do that. I chose to make a separate one so that if I need to loosen it up and rotate the motor at all, this bracket is not going to interfere with that. So once you have that in place, you can put the upper steering shaft in. Do not tighten the steering wheel all the way because you have to put the dash back on, but I did put a nut on there so I could get everything kind of adjusted. Then you can mount the steering servo controller, motor controller, whatever they call this. run your wires. Another quick tip is down here, these bolts, they're too long from out of the factory, so I put 2 washers underneath them. If you don't, it'll bottom out inside the controller. Just put 2 washers on it and there's no worries. Loosely tighten everything up, make sure nothing is rubbing. Then you can go through and start tightening everything up. I did test this. It does work amazing. I have not driven it with it, but sitting here in the shop, I know it's sitting on concrete, so it steers a little bit easier. But let me tell you what a difference that makes. So hopefully you enjoy the rest of the video. You'll see all the stuff that we've done, and good luck with your projects.